Back on October 3rd, the Oklahoma Sooners were 1-2 and fresh off their second consecutive loss to open Big 12 play. Today is December 30th. The Sooners are 9-2 and fresh off a 55-20 pounding of the Florida Gators here at AT&T Stadium in the 85th Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. I am Parker Thune. That is Curt Watson, and we are here to have a good long discussion about what we just witnessed here in this building. Let's show you how it happened, and let's start off with Spencer Rattler on the Sooners' opening possession, going up top to who else? Marvin Mims, 27 yards, Mims' 9th touchdown of the season, a Sooner freshman record. Next drive, Kyle Trask tries to get the Gators back in it. Trey Norwood says, "No, sir, thank you very much." Runs the interception back 45 yards for the Sooners' first non-offensive touchdown of the year, and it was on. Brian Asamoah comes up with an interception on Florida's very next drive. And then how about the trifecta? The first quarter isn't even over yet. Here's Woody Washington picking off Trask for the third time in this contest. Oklahoma led 17-3 after a single stanza, and it did not get any prettier from there. Late in the first half, here's Rattler calling his own number for the 2-yard score. At halftime, the Sooners led 31-13. And come the second half, it really began to get ugly. Here's Seth McGowan popping off for 73 yards, the Sooners' longest rush of the season and the longest rush of McGowan's collegiate career. In fact, he tied his career high in rushing in a single game on just that carry. His previous high, 73 yards, that carry, also 73 yards. Ramondre Stevenson would cap that drive with this touchdown run, bouncing off Gators here and there and everywhere before finding his way into the end zone. And then just for good measure, Marcus Major gets in on the action. 46 yards to the house down the right sideline to put the finishing touches on the victory. 55-20, the final. Curt, some statistics to take note of here. The Sooners rushed for 435 yards as a team. Stevenson, Major, and McGowan all set or tied career highs in rushing yards. And in terms of total yards, the Sooners put up 684 of them. This was legitimately as dominant a performance as we have seen from the Sooners in a really, really long time.
Yeah, and Parker, you talked about the rough start to the season from the Sooners. Two very key components that we saw come into play tonight, Ramondre Stevenson and Ronnie Perkins, were not present for either of those losses. So I think we can just be left wondering, what could this team have done had they started the season with both of them off of suspension? I think we could legitimately be seeing them playing for a title spot.
Now, Florida was missing 4 starters on offense and 4 starters on defense tonight, but you still have to give credit where credit is due. Oklahoma owned this game from start to finish and put the foot on the Gators' throat. 684 yards is 684 yards. It doesn't matter who's playing defense. And Oklahoma certainly proved that if they were not a college football playoff caliber team, they were very much still a team that could have given any of those teams in the college football playoff here in 2020 a run for their money.
Absolutely. Now, and Parker, we saw Kyle Trask, one of the top guys in the Heisman race. He couldn't do anything against the Oklahoma defense. I mean, not 1, not 2, but 3 picks in the first half. Like, in the first quarter. Ridiculous.
And then conversely, Spencer Rattler distributed the ball as efficiently as he had all season. He had 9 different receivers, just 14 of 23, but racked up 247 yards, 3 touchdowns, and added 40 yards and a score on the ground. So all in all, an extremely efficient night for the Oklahoma redshirt freshman quarterback. He gave way eventually to Chandler Morris and then Tanner Schaefer, who both got some snaps in the late going as the Sooners salted away the win. Who were you most impressed with, Curt? If you had to pick an MVP from this game, who would it be?
Parker, I do not think you can say anyone except Ramondre Stevenson. He had a ridiculous game. You talked about his own personal records that he broke, but he broke Cotton Bowl records. I'm pretty sure that he had the most yards rushed by a single player in Cotton Bowl history in the 85 years of the Classic. That's nothing short of remarkable. He was dynamic in the backfield, made big plays when necessary, but also was strong just in those really necessary third down drives where he really needed to make it happen for Oklahoma.
Now, the Sooner Nation will certainly be left to wonder, as you touched on, Curt, what might have been had the Sooners had Ronnie Perkins and Ramondre Stevenson at their disposal for those 2 early season games against Kansas State and Iowa State in which they came up short, or even if the Big 12 slate had been pushed back a month and started about concurrently with the Big 10 schedule and given Oklahoma a chance to get some more preseason practices in and sharpen their skills. But Lincoln Riley said it in post-game press conferences. He's so impressed, and I think everyone has to be, with how close this team has become and how much they have grown from start to finish here in 2020. This is not the same team that we saw week 1 against Missouri State. And they pitched a shutout that day. But it's quite clear that this team is far and away beyond what they looked like at the beginning of the season.
Absolutely, and there's so much hope for this team. You got Marvin Mims coming back. You're really not losing all that many key players. Obviously, there's concern with Creed and just the career that he's had. He could be going off to the draft, losing Trey Brown. But you have an all-star, potential all-star quarterback in Caleb Williams coming in. And if we have a quarterback like Spencer Rattler, and he will be backing up Caleb Williams, as you've talked about many times, that's extraordinary. And I think the Sooners have a lot of hope for getting to that title, just being in contention for a title next year.
And we know the competence of Lincoln Riley's offense is never up for debate. These offenses will put up points as long as Riley is calling the shots here in Norman. But the youth movement on defense is another thing that really has to have Sooner Nation extremely encouraged. You look at 3 true freshmen tonight in DJ Graham, Shane Witter, and Reggie Grimes, all of whom made really big plays throughout this contest on the biggest stage of their lives. And they're not the only guys that have contributed very early on for the Sooners here in 2020. And as you mentioned, we don't know what the future holds for Perkins, who may jump to the NFL draft. There's an outside chance that Nick Benito jumps to the NFL draft as well. But consider this. The Sooners have 4 first-round caliber players at a single position at defensive end. You've got Benito, you've got Isaiah Thomas, you've got Ronnie Perkins, and you've got Jalen Redmond, who didn't even play in 2020, who chose to opt out, citing health concerns. And so, whatever this Oklahoma defense looks like in 2021, I think year 3 of the Alex Grinch regime has to bring a ton of optimism.
Absolutely, and you touched on it. That defensive line was dominant tonight. They were getting into the backfield, making stops at the line of scrimmage when necessary, and overall not letting anything happen beyond them. Coverage looked good. There weren't any really boneheaded penalties. There was a targeting call made that was in the end overturned, but this defense has matured exponentially since the beginning of the season, and under Alex Grinch, even though there's uncertainty with where he will be next year, hopefully we can plan to see him back in Norman with maybe another year there before taking a head coaching gig. But this defense is leaps and bounds ahead of where it was last year, the year before, and the year before that.
Well, that is a wrap on the 2020 season from AT&T Stadium. Your final score, Oklahoma 55, Florida 20. I am Parker Thune. That is Curt Watson. Thank you so much for tuning in to all of our coverage throughout the 2020 football season, and we'll see you again next September as the Sooners begin the quest for a national championship, one that hasn't come back to Norman since 2000, year 2 of the Bob Stoops era. What could year 5 of the Lincoln Riley era bring? We're excited to see. We hope you are as well.